When most people imagine dinosaurs, they picture monsters, massive jaws snapping shut, towering predators shaking the ground with every step, creatures so powerful that entire ecosystems feared their presence. Hollywood has trained us to think that way. The bigger the dinosaur, the scarier it must have been. But the real prehistoric world was far more surprising than that. Because hidden among the giants were creatures that looked nothing like the monsters we imagine. Some dinosaurs were small, some were curious. Some had soft feathers instead of terrifying scales, and a few of them were honestly kind of adorable. Not in a cartoon way. In a real, biological, nature can be unexpectedly charming kind of way. The fossil record shows us something fascinating. The dinosaur world was not only a place of violence and survival, it was also a world full of personality, color, and creatures that behaved in ways that feel surprisingly familiar to us today. Some cared for their young. Some slept curled up like birds. Some hawked through forests the size of pigeons. And once you see them, it becomes impossible to imagine dinosaurs the same way again. So today, we're stepping away from the terrifying predators for a moment and exploring 10 dinosaurs that prove the prehistoric world also had a surprisingly cute side. And the first one looks so much like a bird that when scientists discovered it, it helped change our entire understanding of dinosaur evolution. Anchiornis, the feathered forest acrobat. Imagine standing in a forest 160 million years ago. The world is quiet. Sunlight filters through tall prehistoric trees. Ferns blanket the ground. The air smells damp and alive with the sounds of insects. And then something small lands on a branch above you. At first glance, you might think it's a bird. But it isn't. This tiny creature is called Anchiornis, and it may be one of the most beautifully preserved feathered dinosaurs ever discovered. Anchiornis was about the size of a pigeon, with delicate limbs and a body covered in feathers. But these weren't dull prehistoric feathers. Scientists studying microscopic pigment structures in its fossils discovered something amazing. Anchiornis may have had black and white patterned wings and a reddish crest on its head, making it look surprisingly colorful for an animal that lived more than 160 million years ago. Picture it perched on a branch, tilting its head curiously, its feathers rustling softly in the breeze. Unlike giant dinosaurs that dominated open landscapes, Anchiornis lived quietly in the forest canopy. Its wings weren't perfect for powerful flight like modern birds, but they likely helped it glide or control its jumps as it moved between branches. In many ways, watching Anchiornis would have felt less like watching a dinosaur, and more like watching an ancient, experimental version of a bird. A small explorer of the prehistoric forest. And yet, even creatures this delicate were part of the dinosaur world. But the next dinosaur proves something even more surprising. Because sometimes the cutest dinosaurs weren't the smallest ones. Sometimes they looked like a strange prehistoric pet. Psittacosaurus, the parrot-faced dinosaur. Now imagine leaving the forest behind and stepping into a warmer, more open landscape. Low vegetation stretches across the land. Small herds of plant-eating dinosaurs move slowly across the plains. And among them is a creature with one of the most unusual faces in dinosaur history. Meet Psittacosaurus. Its name literally means parrot lizard, and the moment you see its skull, the reason becomes obvious. Instead of sharp predatory teeth, Psittacosaurus had a short, curved beak that looked remarkably similar to a parrot's. This beak allowed it to clip tough plants and chew vegetation efficiently. But what makes this dinosaur truly fascinating isn't just its face, it's its lifestyle. Psittacosaurus wasn't enormous like the later horned dinosaurs. Most individuals were roughly the size of a medium dog, with strong hind legs and a long balancing tail. And fossils have revealed something incredible. Scientists discovered groups of young Psittacosaurus preserved together, sometimes alongside an adult, suggesting that these dinosaurs may have cared for their young in ways that resemble modern animal families. Imagine a prehistoric morning. A small herd moves cautiously through the grasslands. Behind one adult, a cluster of tiny baby Psittacosaurus follows closely, their little beaks pecking curiously at plants while staying near the protection of the group. For a moment, the prehistoric world doesn't look terrifying at all. It looks almost familiar, like watching a group of animals in a nature documentary today. But the next dinosaur on our list might be the most unexpectedly adorable discovery scientists have ever made. Because when paleontologists found its fossil, it looked like it had simply fallen asleep. May, the dinosaur that fell asleep forever in 2004, scientists working in northeastern China uncovered something extraordinary. At first, the fossil didn't look dramatic. There were no giant claws, no terrifying skull, just a small dinosaur skeleton curled gently into itself. But when researchers looked closer, they realized something incredible. This dinosaur had been preserved in a sleeping position. Its head was tucked beneath its arm, its body curled forward. The posture looked almost identical to how modern birds sleep today. Scientists named it May, a Chinese word that means sleep soundly, and it may be one of the most touching dinosaur discoveries ever made. May was a small feathered dinosaur that lived about 125 million years ago. Its lightweight body suggests it was probably an agile runner and active hunter of insects or small prey. But this fossil captured a rare moment that almost never survives in the fossil record: a dinosaur resting. Just imagine the scene. Night falls over an ancient forest, temperatures drop, and beneath the shelter of plants, this tiny dinosaur tucks its head beneath its feathers, conserving warmth just like birds do today. For millions of years, that peaceful moment remained frozen in stone. A reminder that dinosaurs were not just roaring giants dominating the planet. Some of them lived quiet lives, some explored forests, some cared for their young, and some simply curled up and slept beneath ancient skies. But we've only just begun, because the next dinosaurs on this list become even more surprising. Some had huge eyes that made them look permanently curious. Some had feathered coats that made them look fluffy. And one of them looked so friendly that people sometimes call it the puppy of the dinosaur world. When you think of dinosaurs, you probably picture raw power. Huge bodies, massive claws, the kind of creatures that made the ground tremble with every step. But evolution isn't just about creating giants. Sometimes it creates animals that are, well, unexpectedly charming. Creatures with oversized eyes, curious personalities, and features so gentle that if you saw one today, you might not even believe it belonged to the age of dinosaurs. Some of the dinosaur scientists have unearthed truly challenge our imagination. They don't look like monsters. They look like something that might have hopped through your backyard or perched quietly on a tree branch, just watching the world go by. The next dinosaur on our list is one of the best examples of this. Coming in at number 4 is Oculodentavis, the dinosaur that looked like a tiny fairy creature. In 2020, scientists made a discovery that absolutely shocked the paleontology world. Preserved inside a piece of ancient amber, They found the tiny skull of a creature so small, so delicate, it looked like it was straight out of a fantasy story. This animal was named Oculodentavis, and it might just be one of the tiniest dinosaurs ever found. Its entire skull was only about the size of a human fingertip. Just pause and imagine that for a second. A dinosaur small enough to fit comfortably on the tip of your finger. But its most striking feature was its eyes. They were enormous compared to its head, giving it this wide-eyed, curious look that makes it seem almost unbelievably cute. Picture it perched on a small branch millions of years ago, its giant eyes scanning the forest, its tiny jaws snapping up insects in quick little movements. Because of its size, Oculodentavis probably lived a quiet life high up in the trees, hunting bugs and staying hidden from larger predators. In many ways, it would have looked less like a dinosaur and more like a tiny forest spirit from an ancient world. It's a powerful reminder that the age of dinosaurs wasn't only filled with giants. Sometimes, the most fascinating creatures were the smallest ones. But our next dinosaur proves that even plant eaters could have a surprisingly adorable appearance. And this one had a face that almost looked like it was smiling. At number 5, we have Lilinosaura, the big-eyed explorer. Let's travel back about 110 million years to what is now Australia. But this isn't the sunny Australia we know today. This land sits much closer to the South Pole, and for months at a time, darkness covers the landscape during long polar winters. And yet, life still thrives here. Among the vegetation moves a small dinosaur called Lilinosaura. At first glance, it might seem simple. It wasn't large, only about the size of a turkey, with long legs, a balancing tail, and a lightweight body built for running. But its most incredible feature was its eyes. Lilinosaura had very large eyes compared to its head, which likely helped it see in the dim light of the long polar nights. And that gives this dinosaur an incredibly curious appearance. If you imagine it standing still for a moment, tilting its head slightly, those huge eyes scanning the environment, it almost looks like a prehistoric version of a curious woodland animal. Scientists believe Lilinosaura may have lived in small groups, moving through forests and feeding on plants while staying alert for predators. Picture a little group of them darting through the undergrowth fast, alert, and maybe even playful. In many ways, they probably behaved more like energetic birds or mammals than the slow reptiles people once imagined dinosaurs to be. And their large eyes give them an expression that feels almost friendly. But if Lilinosaura looks curious, our next dinosaur might actually look fluffy. Yes, you heard that right, fluffy. Because by the time paleontologists discovered it, they realized something amazing about the prehistoric world. Some dinosaurs may have looked soft enough to hug. Let's talk about number 6, Cutest, the fluffy dinosaur. For decades, many people believed feathers belonged only to bird-like dinosaurs. But then, scientists in Siberia discovered something completely unexpected, a dinosaur named Cutest. And what made this discovery so revolutionary was its skin. Instead of having only smooth reptile scales, Cutest had feather-like filaments covering parts of its body. These weren't the large flight feathers you see on birds. They were more like soft, fuzzy coverings, almost like prehistoric fluff. Imagine a small dinosaur about the size of a large chicken, running across an open landscape with a lightly feathered body helping to keep it warm. Instead of looking like a scaly reptile, it may have looked more like a strange mix between a bird and a tiny furry creature. Its long legs suggest it was a fast runner, probably darting through vegetation while searching for plants to eat. But visually, the most fascinating thing about Culendatramus is just how approachable it looks. If you saw it standing still for a moment, its feathers gently moving in the wind, it wouldn't seem frightening at all. It would seem curious, almost friendly. And discoveries like this completely changed how scientists imagined the dinosaur world. Suddenly, prehistoric landscapes were no longer filled only with giant, scaly reptiles. They may have been filled with colorful, feathered, lively animals that looked far more like birds than monsters. But if you think fluffy dinosaurs are surprising, the next one might be the most charming of all. It's often called the puppy of the dinosaur world. And once you see it, you'll definitely understand why. By now, one thing should be clear. The age of dinosaurs was not just a world of giants and killers. It was also a world filled with small lives, quick footsteps in the undergrowth, soft feathers moving in the wind, bright eyes watching from branches, tiny creatures surviving in the shadow of monsters. And maybe that is what makes the Cutest Dinosaurs so fascinating. They remind us that prehistoric Earth was not only violent, it was alive, layered, unexpectedly beautiful. Because once you move past the giant predators, you begin to notice a different side of that lost world. One filled with animals so curious, so elegant, and sometimes so strangely lovable that they feel almost impossible to place in the same history as T-Rex. And the final dinosaurs on this list may be the best examples of that. Because these were not creatures designed to terrify. Real, and in a strange way, familiar. Hypsilophodon, the little runner with big energy. If prehistoric Earth had a dinosaur that felt like pure energy, it may have been Hypsilophodon. This small plant eater lived about 125 million years ago, and unlike the giant herbivores that relied on size for survival, Hypsilophodon survived through alertness, speed, and agility. It was lightly built, with long legs, a balancing tail, and a small body that made it perfect for quick movement through ancient vegetation. But what makes Hypsilophodon so appealing is the way it feels in motion. You can almost imagine it without effort. A sunlit clearing, low ferns brushing against the ground, a sudden rustle, and then a tiny dinosaur bursts into view, weaving between plants with the quickness of a modern forest animal. There is something instantly charming about a creature like that. Not because it was helpless, but because it feels lively, restless, full of awareness. Its body suggests an animal that was always paying attention, always ready to sprint, dodge, and disappear into the undergrowth if danger came too close. And visually, that makes it feel less like a reptilian monster, and more like a prehistoric bundle of nervous energy. The kind of dinosaur that would have made ancient ecosystems feel active and full of movement. But if Hypsilophodon looked energetic, the next dinosaur looked almost unbelievably elegant. And in some ways, it may have resembled a tiny bird dressed for display. Kaihong, the rainbow dinosaur. Some fossil discoveries don't just change science, they change imagination. And Kaihong is one of those discoveries. Its full name means rainbow with the big crest, and once scientists studied the microscopic structure of its preserved feathers, they realized something astonishing. This dinosaur may have had iridescent, rainbow-like plumage, not dull gray, not muddy brown, but shimmering feathers that likely reflected light in brilliant ways, similar to how hummingbirds or certain tropical birds appear today. Just stop and picture that for a moment. A dinosaur, covered in feathers, flashing color in the sunlight, moving through a Jurassic forest almost like a living jewel. Kai Hong was small, delicate, and bird-like, with feathered limbs and a graceful body that suggests it was agile and visually striking. It may not have been cute in the baby animal sense. It was cute in a different way, beautiful, refined, the kind of animal that makes you realize prehistoric Earth may have been far more colorful than popular culture ever showed us. Imagine early morning light filtering through ancient trees. A small dinosaur lands on a branch. Its feathers catch the sun. For a second, the forest flashes with color, and then it is gone. That image alone changes the mood of the dinosaur age, because it reminds us that this world was not built only on survival and fear. It was also shaped by beauty, by display, by evolution experimenting not only with power, but with wonder. But the final dinosaur on our list may be the most emotionally endearing of all, because this one didn't just look gentle. It may have lived in a way that feels deeply familiar to us even now. Mosaurus, the dinosaur that started life as something tiny. The name Mosaurus means mouse lizard, and at first, that sounds almost ridiculous. How could anything called mouse lizard belong in the age of dinosaurs? But the reason for the name is what makes this animal so fascinating. The first fossils discovered were babies, tiny hatchlings so small that they gave scientists the impression of an animal no bigger than a mouse. And even though adults grew much larger, those early fossils revealed one of the most intimate things we can ever learn about dinosaurs: what they were like at the beginning of life. Imagine a nesting ground in prehistoric South America. Eggs buried carefully. Newly hatched dinosaurs emerging into a dangerous world. Tiny bodies, huge eyes, fragile legs. The kind of vulnerable beginning that makes survival feel miraculous. Later discoveries suggest that Mosaurus may have lived in groups, and that idea transforms it from a fossil into something much more vivid. Suddenly, you are not imagining a single dinosaur. You are imagining a family, a nesting site, young dinosaurs staying close together in the early stages of life. And there is something undeniably moving about that, because the more we learn about dinosaurs, the more they stop feeling like distant monsters and start feeling like animals, living creatures with growth stages, family structures, and fragile beginnings. That emotional connection is part of what makes certain dinosaurs feel cute, not only how they looked, but the life story they represent. And now we come to the final dinosaur on this list. The one that may best capture the surprising charm of prehistoric Earth. Minmi, the gentle little tank. If someone told you there was an armored dinosaur that still somehow managed to look adorable, you might not believe them. But then you meet Minmi. This small armored dinosaur from ancient Australia was covered in protective plates, giving it the defenses of a tank. And yet, unlike the giant heavily armored dinosaurs that look intimidating, Minmi had a compact, grounded little body that makes it feel more endearing than terrifying. It was low to the ground, sturdy, quiet-looking, the kind of dinosaur that seems built less for drama and more for simply getting through life safely. And maybe that is exactly why it feels so charming. Imagine it moving slowly through low vegetation, head down, quietly feeding on plants while relying on armor rather than speed to stay alive. There is no giant roar, no dramatic hunt, no violent display of power. Just a small, protected herbivore making its way through an ancient landscape filled with danger. And somehow, That makes it easy to love. Because Minnie feels like a survivor. A reminder that not every successful dinosaur had to dominate the world with size or fear. Some survived by staying careful, staying protected, staying low. And in that sense, Minnie may be one of the most relatable dinosaurs of all. Closing, so when we ask what dinosaurs were really like, maybe the better question is this: why did we spend so long imagining them only as monsters? Because the fossil record tells a richer story, a stranger story, a more beautiful story. Yes, there were giants. Yes, there were killers. But there were also tiny climbers, fluffy runners, big-eyed plant eaters, rainbow-feathered show-offs, sleeping little hunters, and armored herbivores that looked almost like prehistoric pets. The age of dinosaurs was not one thing. It was an entire living world, full of scale, color, behavior, and emotion. And maybe that is why these cuter dinosaurs are so unforgettable. They don't just surprise us. They make prehistoric Earth feel real, not as a land of non-stop terror, but as a world filled with everyday life, small moments, quiet beauty, and creatures that, against all expectations, feel almost familiar. So the next time someone says dinosaurs were just giant monsters, remember this list, because some of them were fast, some were fluffy, some were colorful, and some were so adorable they almost feel impossible. But they were real, and that might be the most amazing part of all.